Hello and welcome to this new episode of EnergInform-Me. Today we are going to talk about biofuels. Firstly, because in these times when regular oil is facing such a crisis, it might be interesting to look at alternatives. And second, because biofuels have for long been advocated as clean and sustainable forms of energy, but today are subject to many criticisms. So let's see what it is. So let's start with some basic definitions. Biofuels are fuels produced from a transformation of organic matter, like vegetables for example, and can be divided into two main categories: the oil ones, like biodiesel, and ethanol ones, which are then mixed with gasoline and used for vehicles. Actually, the slogan "Leave Green, Go Yellow" was symbolizing this growing popularity of biofuels in the transport sector in the 2000s, and General Motors took this slogan to advocate for its E85 model, which was a mix between 85% of bioethanol and 15% gasoline. And obviously yellow here refers to corn, which was mainly used to get ethanol. Now let's look at the bigger picture. The US are today's world-leading producer of biodiesel and bioethanol, followed by Brazil. These two countries' production combined yields 87% of the world's production of biofuels. The EU has also promoted the use of biofuels from 2003 and has set a target of 10% biofuels on the market for transport use. But there are some problems to consider here. Firstly, because some biofuels are coming from palm trees' oil, which raises questions about its actual sustainability and poses a threat to biodiversity and causes deforestation. But most importantly, one of the major challenges with biofuels is the conflict of use with agricultural lands. And the real question then becomes, should the agriculture be used for producing food or for producing fuels? One case illustrating this phenomenon was the Mexican Tortilla crisis, which happened in 2007. Back then, the United States had what we could call an ethanol boom, following the decision of Mr. Bush to be less dependent on foreign oil. And where did the Americans get this new fuel from? Right, the cornfields. And almost 20% of corn was dedicated to ethanol production at that time, and that share was steadily growing to reach 40% today. Besides, the US heavily subsidized corn ethanol and exempted it from taxes. At the same time, in the framework of the NAFTA cooperation, Mexico started importing more and more corn from the US, representing 25% of US exports. To this can be added the huge difference of production of corn between the US and Mexico. According to the FAO, while Mexico produced 2 tons of corn per hectare, the US produced 8.4. But with more and more corn being used for the production of bioethanol, the prices on the wholesale market for corn were very volatile, and the price of the tortilla, which is the Mexican basic food, made of corn flour, increased by 30% in 3 years. This led to massive riots in Mexican streets and hence the name of the tortilla crisis. Today, Mexico is seeking to diversify its corn suppliers, moving towards Argentina or Brazil, for example. But in the meantime, some emerging countries are net importers of food, and the choice of more developed countries to dedicate their agriculture to the production of fuels and not to the production of food can appear worrying for their food security. Today, biofuels are seeking to move away from ethanol with important investments in R&D. The most explored option is algae, but this is still more costly than produced from corn. To conclude all this, we can say that there is a challenge with biofuels, which is an arbitrage between, on one hand, not threatening the food security of some countries, and on the other, guaranteeing clean and sustainable forms of fuels. The Mexican tortilla crisis only illustrated this dilemma again, and today's drop in demand for fuels in general because of coronavirus might affect the biofuels sector as well. Thank you very much for listening to this new episode, and see you next week on EnergInform-Me. Bye!